Welcome back on in to the Strictly NFL podcast, Super Bowl week edition. We just started the podcast about 2 years ago. It pains me that the Eagles are in the Super Bowl already. 2 years in, I did not want to talk about them playing for another championship, but here we are. Joining me today is not Des, our usual co-host, but we do have the resident Eagles fan at the Strickland, somebody who I really don't want to love, but he's a great guy, so I have to. You know him from a shit ton of our pods with Schwinn and whatnot on Twitter. Stacy, Patton, how we doing today, buddy?
Doing well. You didn't add that the Eagles are in the Super Bowl thanks in part to someone who 2 years ago was playing in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
Yep, right guard Mekhi Becton.
Well played.
Well, it's been a fantastic season for him and for Saquon, obviously. And we'll get into all that jazz on the episode. But before we start, I just want to remind everybody who may be listening on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, you know the rest. The full episode of this podcast will be behind our Patreon page. There's $3 tier, $6 tier, $9 tier, so on and so forth. $3 tier gets you access to our Discord, I believe, which I just announced today that we are having a Super Bowl prediction Google sheet, and the winner gets a free month of subscription. So if you want to gamble, right, if you want to subscribe and then play in the Google sheet to win back your month, you could go try that. And then if you don't win, you could stick around for all the great stuff that we do. So it seems like a win-win. Um, and what else? What else did I want to say? Subscribe to the YouTube if you're listening on there. And our podcast is hosted by BetOnline. BetOnline Sportsbook is the sorry, that's a shit way to start. The biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all online betting. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline offers you everything and more to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. Where do we want to start for this matchup? I feel like with the identity of both of these teams, we have to start talking trenches, Eagles O-line, Chiefs D-line. I think that is as critical of a matchup as you could have in this game without mentioning the quarterbacks. What do you think about that?
I would agree. I think you have what I would say, would you disagree, the best offensive line in football?
No, and I really thought they'd take a step back without Kelsey, but I mean, Jurgens has held his own, right? And even last week when Jurgens was healthy, Landon Dickerson stepped up, played the role. So they got dudes everywhere in that line, man.
But if there's a weakness that's been exposed a little bit, it's that they're the tackles are beyond reproach.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say a bad thing about Jordan Mailata or Lane Johnson. Pass blocking, run blocking, they do whatever it is, and they are the best at it, at both of those things. The Rams exposed a little bit of a weakness, which I think the Chiefs are well positioned to do because of Chris Jones. The Eagles' interior line, all of them, Dickerson, Jurgens, and Becton. Becton, I think, is so emblematic of this. Like, this was a guy who was playing tackle, but what he wants to do is fucking get downhill and punish dudes.
Yeah.
What he's not great at is pass blocking. I'm not saying he's bad at it. He's not a liability, but they had trouble handling the Rams stunts. And I think that's something that Spagnuolo, I would imagine, given that he's Steve fucking Spagnuolo, will attack. And I think the big thing here is that the Eagles haven't been great against the blitz. We can talk about this more in other parts, but I think that the Eagles passing game has not, like, you look at the sum of the parts, it's not what the passing game has lived up to, right? You have a very accurate quarterback, great deep ball. Probably the thing that's talked about least with Jalen Hurts, but he is one of the best deep ball passers. I put him up there with Mahomes and Allen, just throwing a deep ball and getting it the right spot. And you have AJ Brown, who is automatic on a 5-yard slant, but also can obviously do the deep ball stuff. Haven't mentioned Devontae yet. Haven't mentioned Dallas
Got it.
Goedert. Haven't even
Yeah.
mentioned fucking Saquon, who is also a weapon in passing. It hasn't. The passing game has not done that, and part of that is a stylistic choice that the Eagles made. The Eagles started 2-2, and Hurts had a lot of turnovers, and they have gone to. It reminds me a little bit. I don't know how much you followed Michigan last year. It reminds me a little bit of Michigan last year, where they had a very dynamic quarterback. Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, both got drafted. Colson Loveland, great tight end. You have Donovan Edwards in the backfield alongside Blake Corum, and they rarely pass the ball over 20 times a game. And people blame JJ, and I think a lot of that was, you saw when they played Penn State, they threw the ball 8 times in their first 2 drives, and they just didn't run it again. I think it's a similar thing with the Eagles, where they're like, our defense is so good. And our running game is so good with Saquon, we can control the ball. That the passing offense lacks creativity, and there are some limitations with Hurts. They never throw the ball over the middle of the field. When they do, it works, but it's very rare, and you have to, at this point, give the benefit of the doubt to the coaching staff that his reads aren't as where you'd want on kind of the quick passing game, although it's worked when they've tried it. But to on the line, I think if the Chiefs go straight up, I think the Eagles have the advantage. But I think the stunts on passing downs and load the box on running downs and stunt on passing downs, I think can work effectively. The downside of that is, I think if you look at a lot of Saquon's runs, people are like, how do teams keep letting Saquon get 60-yard touchdown? You look at it, a lot of the times there's 7, 8, 9 guys at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
But the thing is
It's
this,
like you
right?
break one tackle and you're out of there.
Yeah, so it's high reward but high risk, right? And he is very adept at that. I think Spagnuolo is great at that challenge, though. So in the trenches when the Eagles have the ball, I think Saquon will get his. But in terms of limiting the big play and limiting the passing plays, it's just in terms of how the Eagles have coached their offense this year. I think there are answers, but just how they played, I'd give the advantage there to the Chiefs. Even though I think the Eagles have more talent and more options, they just haven't exploited them necessarily.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Chiefs line, like Karlaftis on one end, right, and then obviously you have Chris Jones. They're so disciplined in the run game that I don't know if they necessarily have to do both of stacking the line and then stunting on either down, right? Like you could still run a twist into into the B gap on a running down, like on first down. It's just all about playing with integrity into your gap. So I think that they're so disciplined, they're probably only gonna have to do one of those things. And I don't think any team has been able to kind of say to themselves, all right, we'll be fine if we don't cause any type of miscommunication and we have every guy up at the line. Like you're not going to be able to survive unless you're causing guys to panic on their blocks and read the defenders the wrong way. And then you're also not going to survive if you're not stopping Saquon before he gets his momentum going uphill. So it's a unique challenge for Philly, and I don't want to say they've never seen a defense like the Chiefs because at the end of the day, like it's two teams going
I think
mano a
the
mano,
Rams are
right?
the best comparable, right? The Rams
Yeah,
defensive line is the closest thing they've seen to KC.
yeah. So it's gonna be number one unit going against number one unit, and I want to say I give the Chiefs D line the advantage because of Spags, but you look at what the Eagles have across the line. Landon Dickerson, for my money, is the best left guard in football. Mekhi Becton's been close this year at right guard. The best tackle duo in football, if not top three. Just because of Lane's dominance, I think they're number
I think
one.
those are the two best tackles. Period. I mean, if you look at pass block win rate against pressure, like
Yeah, like
they're like
May
the outlier.
Maylata is just consistently underrated because
Yeah, he had a
he's
bad
never
year last year too. So
yeah, and he's never been the headliner of their O line either. It's been Lane Johnson, it's been Kelsey, and he's been in the shadows of other left tackles like Trent Williams, Laramie Tunsil, all these guys, even Andrew Thomas for a few seasons. But the level that he's playing at is wild. It was funny. I was listening to his interview before the Super Bowl, and they were asking him about Saquon and it's what it's like to block for him, and he was calling him Sayshawn, and I was like, "Yeah, this guy's so fucking Australian, bro. This guy has no clue how to say Saquon Barkley's name
well, he
correctly."
can sing too. Watch The Masked Singer.
I've He was on the album that you guys had dropped, right?
Yeah,
Like the Eagles
he
O
has
line
some
had a
pipes.
yeah. I mean, just can do everything. But I want to stop saying good things about the Eagles. Um, I think that for as much as I believe in their run game and you know how well they are at like getting guys out on the perimeter to block. Um, I mean they have so many athletes out there on the line. They're not going to win unless they get AJ Brown going the way they did against Washington. I think it's a unique challenge for them because if both teams are going to this game saying we want to get AJ Brown going, and then you know the Chiefs are saying we're not going to let him get going. So I think the way that they have to go about it is you can get your foot in the door against the Chiefs by using your tight end over the middle, which is kind of similar to what the Commanders did to you guys,
And
right?
what the Bills
Like
did to the
Ertz
Chiefs
had,
too, right? With
yeah.
Kincaid.
So if you guys can get a little bit of like play action rollouts going and make the Chiefs forget about the middle, hit Goddard, and then make them overly conscious of it, then I think this is more of like a sneak two deep balls over the top to AJ Brown type of a game rather than 11 targets, feed him constantly type of an AJ Brown game. If you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. I have to. I think every game in some level is a feed 11 because the thing is this, right? When the Eagles are 3rd and 5, they are. I don't have the stats, but they're one of the most difficult to defend teams. Why? Because
Yeah.
you have a linebacker that is responsible for that slant. If AJ Brown is 1-on-1, right? Say he's going to be back. You got a linebacker that's responsible for that slant. Does he load the box and prepare for that Saquon run or the Hurts keeper? So AJ Brown's slants have been basically free money for the Eagles all year. That's not going away, and that can't go away on those things. And I think the Eagles, the way the Eagles have approached the year has been, you normally think you get big plays from your passing game, right?
Yeah.
And you move the chains with your running game. The Eagles are a little bit inverted, right? They look at AJ Brown as the way to say we'll get the 3rd down and 5 because you're not covering him on a slant. And I, by the way, AJ Brown is like an interesting guy. There's been a lot of kind of speculation on him. He had the book open or whatever. I think it takes a lot of humility. He had 3 touchdowns this year. You could have way more. But you know, the way their offense is they don't go for the big play to AJ Brown as much. They use him to move the chains, and they know that at some point Saquon is going to go for 60. You know, Saquon's is going to break one. They're going to be out of their gaps. It is very much like a Harbaugh offense. Like I keep drawing these parallels. There's some confirmation bias there because of the two teams I watch as much. But to answer your question, I just don't think that's how they're going to approach the game. Like 2 big AJ Brown plays change the game. I think they're going to approach it as keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, keep moving the chains, and eventually Saquon's going to break one. And you use AJ to move the chains. It's not that they haven't gotten AJ involved in deep balls. They will try that, but ultimately this is a team that I think believes they're going to get the big play from the run game.
Yeah. Like it's hard to doubt them, right? Like they've walked into every single matchup this year with the advantage there. I think that there might be a little bit of what Lamar had against the Chiefs last year. That's something I worry about with Hurts, where Lamar went into that game as, the best running quarterback in football, and he goes into Arrowhead, he kinda plays outside of his style. He wants to beat them by hanging in the pocket, making some questionable reads that he usually, taking off and tucking the ball and going if the read is kinda iffy, but forcing balls in there. I wonder if Jalen Hurts would kinda be under the same pressure and just who he is, like, talking to the media, and stuff like that. I don't think he would be, and especially since he was so fantastic in that other Super Bowl, which he gets shitted on because of the fumble 6. That really, just bad luck. Um, I wonder if there'll be some type of moment like that where the Eagles get in their own heads because these are the Chiefs and they beat us before and we wanna stick it to them type of thing. We saw the Patriots just make teams get in their own heads for so long. And I feel like that's kinda what the Chiefs are becoming at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that Super Bowl. Obviously, I don't think that's been a thing, and the Eagles beat the Chiefs afterwards. So I don't know how much the psychological advantage. I just think Andy Reid's a great coach. We'll talk about the offensive side of the ball for KC.
Mhm.
I think the like that's an elite coaching matchup, by the way. Andy Reid versus Vic Fangio is like the best offensive mind in football against, in my mind, Jesse Minter's great. Saleh from the Jets is great. There are some great defensive minds, but Fangio, there's a reason why everybody tried to do what he did. The Eagles tried to do what Fangio did for like 6 years with different defensive coordinators, and like, why don't you
And
just
they were
hire a
like,
fucking
"Dude,
guy?"
just get the fucking guy who started it, like, come
Yeah,
on."
exactly. And it's been great, right? I mean, they'll give up a touchdown or two early, but they don't give up the second half. They win. Um, I think from a mental standpoint, I'm not too worried about that, but I do think again, I think Spags against what I've seen from the offensive staff is not a mismatch, but I give the advantage to the Chiefs. And I think Reed, I really worry about Worthy a lot on the other side because just Andy Reid is so good at moving guys around, sussing out. Like Fangio is a master of disguising his coverages. Reed can suss that out with his player motion, and then you have a guy in the slot like that. But in terms of the mental aspect, no, I mean Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts. I mean, this guy's played in national championship games going back forever. He was at
Yeah.
Alabama. I mean, in terms of mental toughness, this guy lost his job, had to come back in the championship. And this guy's Matt Saracen in college, right? I don't know if you guys get that reference, but um, he's been through it all. Like mental toughness, that's the last thing I question about with Jalen Hurts. So, and for all these guys, I think Saquon, it is worth mentioning. Saquon was prevented from trying to challenge the record for regular season yards, and I think he took it in stride. Um, so the last game of the season, if he got 100 yards, he could have passed Eric Dickerson. But
I thought I thought they gave him the option to, and he said, "I'm good to not
well,
play."
either way, the point is he is, from what he said, he's very much on board with. He's more interested in a Super Bowl than
Yeah.
any individual accolades. And you've seen it. I mean, AJ, as much as there's been talk, like, does he hate Jalen Hurts? It's been 2 years, and they've rode through all of that, right? This is not a TO situation. AJ Brown obviously has confidence in his abilities. I think he's underutilized, but um, this is very much in terms of that mental strength and looking. I think they just want to win.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if it was 2nd or 3rd year, but Justin Jefferson one time, like, got pissed off with Kirk Cousins for not throwing him the ball in the end zone on 4th down, and he screamed, like, some, you know, some cuss word at Kirk Cousins, and the cameras picked it up. People were like, "Oh, he's gonna request a trade." But guys just get fucking pissed, dude. Like, they get fucking
And you
angry.
played football, right? In a play to play, I played
I mean,
pickup. Shit, like
I've told people who I love to death and still talk to this day to like go fuck themselves. Like on my team, like fucking I hate you, don't fucking talk to me, like all that shit. It's heat of the moment stuff. Like if my right guard, we used to run trap to the left. My right guard used to always forget what side trap we were running. So one time it was like a close game and he fucked it up. And not a little humble brag, but I was the captain on like for the line and I got shitted on for it. So I got pissed at him and I was like, dude, you're fucking stupid. Like run your shit. And we got into this whole shouting match. Like we almost got into a fight. But like at the end of the day, you both know that it's because you want to win. So AJ Brown, there's no place. People want to make this like is he going to get traded? Is he going to ask out scenario? What place is AJ Brown going where he's going to have that situation with a quarterback who's I don't know what you want to call it,
yeah.
top 6, top 8, right? Winning consistently every year.
Best offensive
The
line in football, and
the
yeah,
Eagles are not going to penny pinch you. Like they pay guys when they need to get paid. I just don't see why he needs to be asking out. Like they have a number 2 there.
and
He
I don't think
knows
it's
he's
ever
the
been
one
at
A.
that point. It's always just been they want to win, and I think he has that relationship with. I mean, when he got traded to the Eagles, Jalen and him had that phone call, and then that happens. They're looking for clicks and stuff, but I don't think.
Was that already when you guys had gotten rid of Wentz? Was Jalen like the
Yeah,
full time
yeah,
starter at that point?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was confused a little bit on the
They
timeline
played
over
one
there.
year. The first year they made the playoffs. They got blown out by Tampa Bay, but they made the playoffs,
Yeah.
and that was the lowest I've ever been on Jalen Hurts because Devontae was open all fucking game, but Jalen Hurts was in the second year and just couldn't find him. So,
hmm
and then the next year they made that trade. So
What's been going on with Devontae too? Because I know he hasn't necessarily been getting the most targets either.
yeah, it's a run first offense, and there's a lot of mouths to feed. There
Yeah,
is,
like when Goddard gets 8 catches like last week, it's going to be hard.
and Goddard is going to be open, right? When you're playing off play action, when you're messing with the linebackers, Goddard is the guy, right?
Yeah,
The slot. I mean, Devontae has had, but Devontae's been used more as an infrequent deep threat. Um, Again, these are things that I have issues with the offense because when they have obvious passing downs, there's a great follow on Twitter. Even if you're a Giants fan or whatever, Shane Half does really good breakdowns. And the Eagles they'll often have Hurts have his first read and then they'll have a backside read and the timing just doesn't work. And it wouldn't work and it's not a Hurts criticism that unless you're Justin Herbert, you're still going to be late, but Justin Herbert has the arm to make that throw. Nobody else does, right? So you're putting your QB in an impossible situation at that point. And I think the passing game has left a lot to be desired because you have two guys who could be you have one guy I think is a top 5 receiver in the league. I'd put him up with Jamar Chase in AJ Brown. You have another guy who can be a number 1 for most teams, right? I mean, even the Giants got Devontae Smith. I think there's a competition between him and Neighbors. And you have Goddard. You have maybe one of the top 5 receiving tight ends in the league, and he can block. So the sum has not equaled the parts, and I think it's partly because they've been very conservative. They don't want to throw over the middle. They don't want Hurts holding the ball for too long, and they feel like we run the ball so well, and our defense is great. Don't turn the ball over, keep wearing on them, and you'll get there. Which I can't criticize that philosophy. It got them to the Super Bowl, but it feels like there should be more there.
Last question about Philly offense before we jump over to switching sides, and going, KC offense, Philly defense. Do you think that because you guys haven't had a drive on offense with a game on the line recently, right? Like you guys were going against the Rams 2 weeks ago, but the defense closed that game out. Commanders, that game was over from just about halftime. Green Bay, I think that game got ugly around half as well, if I remember correctly, right?
No, it was pretty competitive late in the fourth.
Damn it, I'm forgetting then because I thought you guys had kind of wrapped that game up.
I mean, if do you consider a 2-score lead wrapping it up in the fourth quarter? In this NFL, I don't. So,
But how much time left? Like 6 minutes?
I mean, we won by 12, and going in the fourth quarter, it was an 11-point game. So,
Oh, all right. I wouldn't say wrapped up, but I would say, do you think, or my question, I guess, not what I would say. My question to you is, do you think game on the line, this Eagles offense has been put in enough stressful situations to where, they know what they want to go to? Um, if they don't have the option to put together a long 12-play drive with the run game, do you have confidence in them to drive for a touchdown?
I have confidence, but we also haven't seen it this season.
Okay.
I've seen Jalen Hurts do that this season. That hasn't been called upon them a lot, right? Their losses have been Atlanta, which is a weird game, Tampa Bay, who just always plays us well, and Washington with without Hurts. So it's an NA for this season. Do I have confidence in Hurts to make the right reads? Yes.
Mhm.
But I think it's a fair point to bring up that, like, if you're down 3 and you have a minute 55 or whatever, without the threat of the run, how effective can this offense be? I would say, if I had to choose us or Mahomes in that situation, yeah, the Chiefs have the advantage.
Yeah. I also, for what it's worth, the Eagles are the rare team where it probably has to be a clock like under 130-ish to take away the run game from them because
Saquon can
like,
go for a bunch
yeah,
anytime.
yeah. So they have that benefit, but still, I heard a stat today that Patrick Mahomes is 11-0, um, or 11 for 11, excuse me, 11 for 11 on potential game-winning drives in the playoffs. Which I didn't go back and fact check it, but every single time that I've thought about it, I've been like, okay, yeah, I think he did get that game-winning drive in the end of it all. So you look at his resume, the Eagles, I don't think they have a choice but just to make sure he doesn't have the ball with a chance to win the game. Um, I you obviously can't control that fully. Like you can kind of milk the clock. You can, you know, we're not gonna throw the ball here on second down and two. We're gonna run it just because we don't want to get down the field too fast, all that stuff. But it seems nowadays like if you have the ball, you better just not let Patrick Mahomes touch it because bad things are gonna happen for your team. Um, Flipping over to the Chiefs offense, I really wanted to talk about Xavier Worthy after you brought him up because something that I was looking at from an outsider's perspective up until like week 10 to 12-ish. I was like, why are all these guys, still talking about how the Bills traded Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs? Why does it matter? He's been a gadget guy. Yeah, he's still a rookie and he can develop, but it hasn't been very impactful. I was following this thread on Twitter where it talked about all the different ways that he's been used as a horizontal spacer instead of a vertical spacer. And there is nobody really who can I don't want to say make you show your coverage, right, and show your hand on offense out of motions than Xavier Worthy because you still have guys like Tyreek Hill, Jameson Williams, all that good stuff. But he is somebody who, if you're in man on defense and he's in motion running horizontally, the tell is going to be there. If you're bumping over in zone coverages and guys are just taking 2 steps to their left, you're going to be able to tell because people are reactive to him. And on an offense that doesn't really have any type of spacing with Hopkins, Kelsey, You got a little bit now with Hollywood Brown coming back, but Andy Reid shifted his thought process from, okay, we're not going to really get him north south in the pass game and in the pitch run game and all that kind of stuff. We're going to just have this guy running drag routes, slant routes. Sometimes out of the backfield, they've had him doing stuff. And we're going to torture you horizontally to where if you want to cover all 52 feet across this field, we're going to find that four or five, oh, sorry, 52 feet, 52 yards, of this field horizontally. We're going to find that 4 to 5 yard gap. We're going to stick Travis Kelce right there, and we're going to hit him. And we're going to turn the sticks, and you're not going to stop that shit, and we're going to make you bleed. So I really like how they've used him. I think that's probably a way that I don't know if most people would ever kind of compromise on that, right? Like you drafted Worthy to be the 4-2 speed guy who opens up the offense, takes the top off of the defense. But they've shifted, and I guess that's why Andy Reid is one of the greatest offensive minds of all time.